Welcome everyone, and thank you for participating in our presentation webinar on how to develop and implement an AIVRS employee onboarding and orientation plan. Some of you might be wondering, what is that? So hopefully today we can answer some of those questions. My name is Winona Reid, and I am one of the training and technical assistance specialists with AIVRTTAC. I'd like to introduce Suzanne Malson, my co-presenter. She is also with AIVRTTAC, and she's one of the training and technical specialists as well. And Paula Seanez from the Navajo Nation OSHRS program. She also is one of our content experts, and we thank her for joining us today and being in that role with us. Thank you, Paula. So I wanted to kind of start off this presentation with just a short survey. I have on here just some cartoons that I found on the internet about onboarding, and they kind of spoke to me, and they kind of represented some of how I felt when I was onboarding in different roles and different, starting out in different jobs since I graduated college. And so like the middle one, the one, sink or swim, I've been in that situation. And the one on the plane, remember on your first day when I said you need to jump right in? I've had that told to me as well. Jump right in on day one. And so can you start the poll questions?
Sure thing.
So if you can answer the questions on here, I just kind of wanted to see where you guys are at and what you guys know, because we're going to talk a lot today. So the first question is, there's only 4 today, if you can answer them, is think back to when you first started with AIVRS, with your AIVRS program. Was there an onboarding plan? The second question is, did you have an orientation? And the third is, have you created an onboarding plan for your AIVRS program? And the last is, can you define onboarding and orientation?
We just had a new phone number join, just to remind everyone, *6 to mute and unmute while we're doing this poll. I just wanted to announce that.
Okay, we're about 73%. And so the first question is kind of what I would probably typically see is about 76% of you on the line on our webinar say, no, you did not have an onboarding plan. And so I really want you guys to remember that throughout this presentation. And then the second was, did you have an orientation? And some of you say you can't remember. 10 of you said no. Have you created an onboarding plan for your AIVRS program? And about 10 of you, 59% of you said no. And then can you define onboarding and orientation? And I'm glad that most of you say you can define that. And so onboarding is really, really important. When you think about, I actually tried to find some statistics and data about high turnover in just vocational rehabilitation, like state VR or even tribal VR, and I couldn't find it. There was a lot of literature written about how the state VR was instituting a lot of different training and a lot of different things to try to keep a lot of state VR employees with state VR. I couldn't find anything on tribal VR, but I can tell you that, over the last 20 years and being away for, I was away from tribal VR for about 4 years, that I came back and I felt like I just saw a whole new group of tribal VR directors. There are still those ones that have been here for a very long time, and those long time tribal VR staff and directors. And so I think that those seasoned directors are people that I really want to ask more about their onboarding and orientation plans. But it's just something to think about as directors of what you are doing. Am I still supposed to share results?
I'm wondering if it, oh yeah. Yep, perfect.
Okay, so did you guys not see them before? I just want to make sure.
But that's good. Thank you. That works.
But can someone just answer that? Were the results shown before?
No, I mean, it did show, but it didn't show it in this format. This
Oh, okay.
format
So I'll let you
has
guys look at it just for a minute, just so you can see how people responded that are online. I think it's kind of, I should do I should do a snippet of this. Okay, we can close this now. Should I close it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, stop share. Okay, maybe I'm the one that's supposed to be controlling it. I'm sorry, you guys. I always get confused during when I do the polling.
And I can close it there.
but
Okay.
it's lots of fun. It breaks up all of the one-sided dialogue.
So this webinar, we are going to focus on strategies to develop and implement an onboarding plan, an orientation plan that will assist new AIVRS employees in adapting to and learning about the tribal work experience. You know, how is it working for the tribe? I can tell you that I've only had one experience working for my tribe. And so I can imagine if I ever went back, I would really need to like learn a lot about working for the Navajo tribe. I worked at a university for 2 universities for a long, long time. So I think that that's part of an onboarding is learning about the tribal work experience. The second is, you know, what are the tribal policies and procedures and what are the program policies and procedures? And how is your staff going to adapt and learn about the departments? You know, where do you sit? Where does the tribal VR program sit within a department, within the tribal structure? What is the org chart? And then they need to learn about what is the actual AIVRS program and what are they doing in their particular position, sorry. And how are we going to do that? We have 3 objectives that we want to accomplish today. The first is you're going to learn about some terms and some processes of instituting an onboarding and orientation plan. And you're going to understand the importance of developing a process of onboarding and orientation for new staff. And you're going to learn about what is available on our website when assisting new AIVRS staff. Okay. So let's get started. So onboarding is kind of like a funny word. What does it mean? Well, onboarding involves new hires, and it should be a strategic process that lasts about a year. And because how you handle the first few days and months of new employees' experience, it's crucial to ensuring high retention. So there's going to be some words that you're going to hear over and over. Retention, employee performance, competency, policies and procedures. There's certain themes that come about and certain words that are out there. And onboarding and orientation is mainly the supervisor of the tribal VR program. They're kind of in charge of it, as well as HR. And so this webinar is focused on supervisors of new employees. So onboarding, according to the Society for Human Resources Development, is the process of helping new hires adjust to social and performance aspects of their new jobs quickly and smoothly, and learn the attitudes, knowledge, skills, and behaviors required to function effectively, as well as getting a new hire the tools and information needed to become a productive member of the team. And I think that's the key word, is helping your new employee become productive in your team and providing services to tribal members with disabilities. So basically, in a nutshell, onboarding is a comprehensive series of events that include orientation that helps new staff understand how they can be successful in their day-to-day job and how their work contributes to the overall tribe and program. So it's kind of like the overarching, when they get hired, it's day one. Sometimes it even happens before day one, that onboarding is overall, and orientation is just one of the pieces of it, okay? So it's a whole plan in place to make sure that staff member is going to be successful in their job. What do you want? You want to train your employees to be at their maximum level, 100, working 100%, helping tribal consumers. They're able to meet with employers. They're able to do their job with minimal supervision. And the faster that we can get them up to speed and involved in your program and that they're productive, the faster that their value into becoming a contributing member, that's how they're going to feel valued. They're going to want to be wanting to do more for your tribal VR program. So how do we do that? How does a structured and strategic onboarding or orientation plan lead to loyal and productive members of your team? So I'm going to say that again because I think it's an important question. So how do you develop a structured and strategic onboarding and orientation plan that's going to lead to loyal and productive members of your team? Okay, so well, there are 5 critical components of onboarding. The first one is the orientation of the program, and usually this happens during the first week, the first few hours, and they're only about a couple hours in length. And those are kind of referred to as the new hire packet. They are completing paperwork. They're just getting a kind of an overview of maybe the tribe or the program. It's usually just can be a couple hours one day and a couple hours another. It's very quick. And Suzanne is going to cover orientation, which is just one part of onboarding. But there's other parts of onboarding that I want you to think about. And that's the compliance section. The compliance section are when you're communicating with the staff on what are the rules and regulations of the program, what do they need to know about Section 121 or other parts of the Rehab Act or the Code of Federal Regulations. There was one of the cartoons in there that I showed previously, and it was of a person, and they just dumped a whole bunch of papers and put it on the table, and it was like that high. That can be overwhelming for a new employee. And when you think about some of the employees that you're hiring, you're not hiring, in most cases, I would say over 90% of the people that Tribal VR are hiring don't have a vocational rehabilitation degree or don't have past experience in VR. And so you're hiring someone who may have some transferable skills, they may have a degree or not, but they are someone that has some sort of level of experience in either counseling or business or social work. And so getting them acclimated to VR may take a while. And I can tell you that I've been, around Tribal VR for a long time, and I feel like every day I'm still learning something. Every day I'm hearing a new thing. And so I think that it's important to make sure when you're presenting the rules and regulations that you do it in a structured way. And that's what I mean is like, how is your onboarding going to be strategic and structured? Also about compliance are what are the policies and procedures for the tribe? Who's covering that? How is that being covered? And then you have your specific program policies and procedures that should be, you know, they're tied to your special application requirements, they're tied to the VR process, they're tied into budget and stuff. And then you also want to talk about what's written in the grant. How are you communicating the grant's goals and objectives to your new employee? And that's the compliance portion of onboarding. The next is clarification. You know, what is their role as a job developer? What are their responsibilities as a VR counselor or a VR tech? What is that person, the receptionist or the admin assistant, what is their role in this whole travel VR program? And so clarifying people's different roles and responsibilities is important at this time. And then there's the culture. There's a certain culture, there's a certain language, there's lingo, there's acronyms. I've never seen so many acronyms as I do in rehabilitation, you know. And we do have on our list as acronym list, but you can even create your own acronyms list within your program, because I imagine even within the tribal, the tribe, across the tribe, there's even acronyms that are used. But there's also what, you know, the values of the program. What does it mean to work for the tribal VR program? You know, you're really helping people with disabilities get employed. Well, how do you do that? What are the values behind that? What is the mission of the department that you're in? Some areas they may be in under health and human services, and some are under education. Some are right under the president. And that kind of culture leads right into your program. And so how does that person, that new employee, feel about that? It may be all new to them how that culture is reciprocated. And then you want to, you know, you're wanting to communicate with your new employee is the disability movement. What has happened over the years? Even like the culture within KNAR and RSA, there's so much history behind that. And so communicating with that person the importance of that history and those people who paved the way ahead of you. I mean, it was a big disability movement that occurred for tribal VR programs. You know, communicating what the history of AIVRS is important. And then lastly is connection, is having that connection for, especially like onboarding. A lot of times it may be kind of a one-on-one experience and maybe a little bit lonely. But when you're leading into connection, that's when you're developing the relationship with existing staff and your other supervisors, and maybe you're, you know, setting up a buddy system and setting up mentors. I think mentors is so key, because sometimes as a supervisor, you may not have all the time in the world to be that person's mentor, but if you can set them up with other mentors in your office or even across the country, that might lead to greater, you know, them learning more about tribal VR, learning about their job and their roles and responsibilities. So let me make sure I'm on the right slide. Okay, being a new employee can bring in like all sorts of different feelings. I think back of all my new jobs and how scared I might have been, or how vulnerable I felt, and also being really excited about the future and how I could contribute to the position that I was hired in. There can be an awkward stage or feeling uncertain about your, you know, skill set. You can feel emotional, and I can tell you that I've felt all of those. Even after working with a program for like 2 years, I feel, you know, I feel a little awkward and I feel a little emotional sometimes, and I question, you know, my role. And so making sure that that new employee understands that it's okay to feel all those different emotions when they're going through onboarding, because, you know, travel VR is stressful. there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of black and white, and there's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to know, and so just making sure that your staff know that they're okay and that they feel protected in this process. Okay, so some of the outcomes, some of the short-term outcomes involve, like, how does that employee adjust to their new job? And that involves self-efficacy, meaning that they become confident in their job performance. You know, if I feel confident in something, I feel like I'm more motivated, and I feel like I can be more successful in accomplishing goals and objectives. But if I don't have self-confidence, or if I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, I may not feel as motivated to accomplish those goals and objectives. So making sure that your staff, your new employees, have some level of self-efficacy, okay? And then there's role clarity, you know, so how well does a new employee understand their role and expectations? And that goes back to the policies and procedures and the rules and regulations. You know, they understand where does this all come from? Where does the VR process come from? Where does the, you know, eligibility stuff come from? Where does all this paperwork come from? A lot of it came from advocacy work. It came from, you know, protecting client confidentiality. So how does that employee understand their role? And then also about new employee adjustment is the social integration, like I said, you know, meeting and starting to work with your partners, working with employers, and developing that relationship outside of your office so that you can try to get some jobs for your consumers, you know, working with coworkers on cases together, and then of course your buddy system. The long-term outcomes are more of like the attitudes and behaviors. So, you know, having a higher job satisfaction. That's what you want for your employees. If you have a higher job satisfaction, in most instances, they don't want to leave. They feel satisfied in their job, and they're happy with doing VR and providing services. And then there's a level of organizational commitment. How do they feel about the mission and values of Tribal VR, as well as the department that they live in or work in, and the tribe? Is having that commitment. Also, low turnover. You know, you want your staff to stay there for a long period of time, because there's a lot of time and energy, and time and energy equals money. If you lose an employee, you want someone to stay there a long period of time, because you want some sort of continuity, and you want someone to maybe fill in if you're not there, or you want, in the event that you're talking about succession planning, you know, those are all the things that you should be thinking about. Okay, I'm going to retire in the next 5 years. I'm going to write the next grant, but after the 5 years, I need to, you know, move on and retire. So how do we do that? I want, you know, it's all about that, developing the next generation of Tribal VR employees. And then you know, there's higher performance levels. Are they advancing and meeting with employers? You want them to just not be in the office. Well, I mean, right now it's a pandemic, and I can talk about that later. But you know, in normal days, you want your employees to work their way up to a higher performance. In the beginning, that first year, there's a lot to learn. In the first 2 years, there's going to be a lot to learn. And I can tell you, so when I used to work here before, and then I left, I went from capacity building, and then I went to a different office in our university, and I started working in our grants and contracts office. And in that role, I mean, I understood rules and regulations. I understand budgets. I understood how to get a grant through to the funder. And I remember I went to a concert. I go to concerts too, but I went to a conference, and there was a presenter and a lot of people were asking questions, and there was new research administrators, and I was hired as a new research administrator. And one of the questions was asked, and the presenter said, "Oh, come back to me in 4 years." And I was kind of taken aback by that. And she just kind of laughed and she goes, "No, I'm just kidding." She goes, "But seriously, it's going to take 4 years. It's going to take you 4 years to figure out everything that you need. Just coming to this one conference is not going to give you everything that you need. It is going to take 4 years of submitting grants to multiple agencies, multiple funders, and multiple forms and different things, different PIs." And I was like, wow. And I never forgot that, because it really did. I worked in that office for 4 years, and I could not believe what I experienced in those 4 years. Those 4 years, I would have never anticipated in that first year that I had worked there. Everything that I had learned, everything that I experienced, and so that job led me to U of A, and that was another place that I had learned so much. So I feel that way with Travel VR. It takes a lot of time, and supporting those new employees and supporting those, new counselors in their role is so, so important, and wanting them to be effective in their job. Okay. So I just added this, okay? I added this morning because I was actually on my way into work and I was trying to find somewhere to park. I was driving around all over the place. And there was a piece on the news, and it was talking about how people were hiring new staff and how you had to think about virtual onboarding or remote onboarding. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. It just fell in my lap. I was like, wow, there's so many people that are still working from home. What are you doing? How are you hiring new employees? And so one of the things I was, thinking about, what happens when you're remote onboarding? The first thing is all I need to say is to relax, because all of us are in the same place. Everyone is in one level, one department, one tribe, people are having to work remotely and adjust to this new way. Who knows how long it's going to be? And some tribes are going back, but maybe it's just only a couple of people. So the second is recommending to this new employee that you just hired a virtual onboarding buddy, because you as a supervisor may be really busy with a whole bunch of other things, with reporting and budgeting and reporting to tribal council and working with employers, or doing a whole other part of supervisory work. So you want to hook them up with a virtual buddy. Maybe there's a counselor lead that can help that person learn about the system if you have a case management system, or learn about how are you saving items and all that kind of stuff. So setting them up. The third thing is, you want to make sure that you get them up and running online as soon as possible, because if they're not connected, they don't know how to go into the case management system. They're not going to know how to do anything. They're just going to be sitting around. So you need to make sure that you get them set up, get that computer going, get them set up with IT. Don't waste any time on that. The last thing I heard of this morning was, concentrating on competency. There's going to be, when I talked about getting to know people and doing the social part of onboarding and talking with employers or talking with people one-on-one, that may not be happening right now because of COVID. You want to concentrate on competency and what are their learning goals for the first 90 days or what's going to happen in the next month. And I can recommend, there's a lot of stuff on our website. You can lead your new employees and say, go to the AIVRTTAC website. There's all these webinars. There's all these talking circles. There's these products and tools. There's the Northwest Indian College TVR Institute that you can go to. And there's all these resources out there. Go visit your state VR website. There's a lot of resources online. So developing that level of competency might be where you want to target right now because of COVID. And then you want to have clear policies and procedures on, you know, equipment and supplies. What is it saying in there, and how are you relating that information to them? You know, we're giving you this computer on loan. You need to set up a username and password. Don't lose, you can't give out that username and password to people. What level of confidentiality is out there? So having clear policies and procedures communicated to your new staff member is really important. And then second to last is keep things interactive. You know, how often are you meeting with them? You don't want to meet with them maybe every single day, because they're going to those resources and those sites. And it made me think about when I first took an online class. So I love online, or I love classes that you meet. I think that's me. I like meeting one-on-one with people face to face. And when I had to take my first online class, I just felt like I went down a rabbit hole. I remember I just felt like I just read, and one link led to another link, and that link led to 25 links, and those 25. And so it's important to understand that your staff, that's probably what's happening. They're doing a lot of research on their own and reading a lot of things online, but still keeping it interactive, where you meet, you know, maybe once a week, supervisor to new employee, and then maybe once a week with their buddy. And then lastly is orientation. Even though orientation may only be one day event part of onboarding, that may not be normal now because of COVID. You might need to spread that part of orientation over a few weeks now, because there's so much going on, there's so much learning, there's so much setting up their computer and stuff. Okay. Okay, Suzanne, you.
Thank you. Well, Winona, thank you. What wonderful and really excellent information that you provided. And there is a lot to onboarding. When we first hear it, we don't think about all of the pieces that really make up the onboarding. So if I were to ask you, after what Winona has shared with you this morning, why an onboarding process? Why do you want an onboarding process? Can anybody open their mic and share with us, or get on the in the chat box? Why do you want to have an onboarding process? Winona gave us lots of information, and like to hear from you. So I'm going to be quiet for a few seconds and let you either go in the chat box or open your mic. *6, I think it is, if you're on the phone.
Hi, Suzanne. This is Carol.
Hi, Carol. Welcome. Thank you.
Yes. Well, coincidentally, we mostly we haven't had an onboarding process because we seldom have new employees. Typically, we've had very little turnover, and we have had a position that opened twice, and then we kind of switched it around. And so we have two new positions and two new members that just started. And so we contacted Suzanne, and I asked her to meet with us and talk about the AIVRTTAC, the website, and all the information that is available, just what you were talking about, Winona, because I know there's just such a rich resource there. And they did that with Casey, our vocational rehabilitation counselor. And I think that went very well. And they just met once, and they just came up with a plan that they were going to do. Is it module Mondays and webinar Wednesdays, I think? They're making a structure of how they were going to, you know, kind of systematically look at things and that were already developed and on the AIVRTTAC website. So just kind of as an aside, over the years, I've been doing this for 25 years. So we've had, you know, we've only had 4 counselors in 25 years. So, and with other staff, it makes a real difference of whether you're coming in with a vocational rehabilitation background, either a professional training background, and we have been able to hire for all those 25 years, we've had at least one counselor that's a master's level certified rehabilitation counselor coming in the door. So that has been very helpful to our program. And then we've had the other side of it where we've trained people with other degrees or no degrees to serve in different roles within our grant. But we have also people coming in that are tribal members and they know about the community. And so they bring all of that knowledge and skills and cultural background to our program, but they don't necessarily have professional training in vocational rehabilitation, but we've always hired people that are tribal members and have been clients of our program. So they come in with a history of having gone through the process. So I think that's been very helpful. So it's really been a kind of a juggling act when you have a new person start is what do they bring with them? And what are those components do you need to rev up? And I don't know, we're really excited about our 2 new employees. We took a full-time position that was been kind of problematic to us and switched it into 2 part-time positions because what we've learned is there's a lot of people that really don't want to work full-time. You know, both of Shirley and Sarah have toddlers. You know, they're you know, they have young children. They didn't need the benefit package. They wanted to have a quality time with their children and not be working full time. And we have right now we have with 3 staff we have 5 children in early Head Start and Head Start. So anyway, so it's just been, our tribe does not have a formal orientation process that people go to. It's been hit and miss. So we usually provide that ourselves, as most programs do. But I think it's important. I know when you put up the little 4 questions, Winona, when I started, there was no one that working that did an orientation. I mean, there were so few people and so few programs 25 years ago that it was like, you know, you hit the ground running and you're all in it together, and we all helped each other out and we figured it out as a team. But I think how things have changed over time, and it has been really different this year with we were closed for, or I should say closed, we were working from home for 3 months. And so it was hard during that time, you know, when you're trying to do an orientation with people and all of a sudden you're not together. And I think that's a challenge with the working at home, is how do you onboard and provide orientation to new employees? If you've been working together as a team for a while, you can do it, but it's harder during the social distances that we're having to practice, and not having clients in our building right now. We're having kind of an upsurge of cases here, so we're on more stricter guidelines. So we do a lot by phone, which we've not done in the past. And so that's been a change too.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. We are in a different time. That was a lot of good information, Carol.
We're in the midst of it right now with
yeah,
trying to develop a onboarding
right.
process, and then having 2 people, new people come in. And one thing they are doing though is they are both Shirley and Sarah are taking 2 classes from Northwest Indian College.
Excellent, excellent. Those are good.
To do that, and I think that's really awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Rachel talks in the chat box about helps the new person visually connect faces with the names, and they may see on a directory and many people learn visually in terms of building location and layout. So yes, you're right. And Amanda said we have 2.5-day company orientation at our tribe, TCC, Then we, as managers, supervisors, have created a checklist to go over program information and tours to other staff and programs. Then we have read the grant, and then the start reading their assigned case files, transferring anyone related to them from other VRCs. They send out information letters to the new clients, training needs, and door is always open. And I think these, Carol and Rachel and Amanda, it gives a better picture when we're hearing your local environment and how you're doing it. So if we were just to summarize something, we're looking at pre-boarding, and I think this is an important part. And people, when you first hire them, maybe one might not be able to join your team for 1 or 2 weeks. You might want to think about sending them a welcome email. You might want to have them meet the team. Some recommendations are videos, but that might not be possible. So you might want to think about, maybe everybody in the staff write their name, their position, and just a little paragraph of welcome and send it out in one email. Just some little things to keep that person engaged. And then practical information, providing that practical information is really important because it provides those schedulings and it gives them a little bit more information on their particular position. And those are all significantly important to that pre-boarding is the foundation. It's like you don't build a house on sand, you build it on cement. And so that's what pre-boarding does. It provides that foundation for moving forward, provides the practical information, when to meet and who to meet. And as Winona said earlier, you connect them with a mentor or a buddy. And it looks like we have some other people asking questions in the chat box. Could you monitor that a bit and interrupt me, Winona, if I need to? The onboarding, make that first day. We're down into the onboarding part. And so you want to make that first day nice for them. Welcome them to the community, maybe have a little breakfast with the rest of the staff. Make sure that they get a tour of your community, the other tribal programs. And I think more important than anything is to provide them a mentor, somebody that they can turn to all the time and be able to ask questions. And that mentor would maybe be the one that would take them to provide them on the tour, show them where the coffee and the water is, and show the new hire their office space. If it could be the reception area, what does that look like? And provide them their computer, their phone, and that sort of thing. And then the in-depth training. You're going to then move from the initial training into in-depth training. And you're going to be looking at that, maybe meetings with one-on-one meetings with staff members. A lot of these onboardings are looking at large corporations. We're looking at small communities. So it might be just moving one day with one staff member and another day with another staff member, just to have an idea of what that person's responsibilities are during the day. So the orientation is included in that in terms of introductions, provide the mentor, we'll repeat that over and over again, in the schedule. And then you want to create a calendar. This is really important. And you want to provide 5 trainings for somebody. Think about what kind of activity that could happen. Now, AIVRTTAC has 5 e-learning modules that is available, and that's a good way to start and in terms of getting outside training. TBR Institute has modules, and introduce them to that, to Western Washington University, so that they have another resource and then further their training, maybe become a student of the Institute. And then there are CRCs. You can, if they're, that's a wonderful website to look at, even if a person isn't has CRCs, but it's a good one to go to because it really talks about ethics and to do no harm. And this is something that we find really significant in some areas where people know the language but don't practice the language, right? To do no harm, you have to practice it, not just know what it means, right? And CRC website does that. And then look for other specific program projects, what's happening internally, tribally, you know, what programs, education department, social services, cultural department, what are they providing that this new employee might need? And develop that checklist, and we do have a checklist. And you know, you want to do one-on-one checking, check-ins with the new hire, and you want them to be continuous. But you have to think of that 90-day projection of probationary period is over. So you want to think about a more formal 30-day, 60-day, and maybe 2 weeks before the 90-day of actually sitting down and talking about what are the next steps, what are the problems, what are the, you know, what are the barriers, and that sort of thing. I think that that's really, you don't want to get to the 90-day and all of a sudden say, well, you're not fulfilling the roles and responsibilities that we really want, and we're letting you go. No, nobody should be surprised with an evaluation. You need to, whether your tribe supports it or doesn't support it, or whether you feel like you're moving forward or standing still, these evaluations, these 30-day check-ins are important, and they should have, and before the 30-day, there should be other information available. Next slide, Winona, please. And there's some people chatting in our chat box. That's,
yeah, I wanted to say, and I just lost my chat box. Where did it go? Oh, right here. Chris Zeiler said that a lot of the problem that he comes across is that he has staff or new hires that just kind of want to jump right in and do the work and skip talking about code of ethics or talking about the grant. And I can understand that. That goes back to that cartoon I was talking about, you know, just a whole bunch of stuff. And I remember, and this is not to call out Lee, but I remember when I first started with Lee, and many of you guys remember, you know, we didn't have we did everything by binders. We printed everything. And I remember when I got the Rehab Act and I got the grant and I got everything that I had binders all over the place. And I had these binders. It was overwhelming. It was a lot. And I had binders and binders and binders to do my job. And so it can be daunting. So I would recommend maybe starting out with just the abstract and the special application requirements. That is enough information to give to a new hire. You know, read the abstract. It has the goals and objectives in there, has the purpose in there, how are you going to evaluate the program, what the outcomes are. And then in the special application requirements, it talks a little bit of the rules and regulations and how you're going to go about doing something.
And also the assurance statements, and maybe that's covered in the other, but to what has the tribe said that they were that they would follow, that they would follow. Lee puts in a good question here, and I think I'm going to put it out to the audience instead of answering it. And how does onboarding orientation differ for new employees that are non-native? How would that differ? Would it differ? Let's hear from some of the other. Paula, do you think it would differ? I called you out, I'm sorry. But I think, good morning. I think you would be the one to answer that.
I wasn't going to answer Lee's question, but I think that Suzanne and Winona have covered a lot here. And I just want to highlight some areas. Our program, very similar to Carol's, we haven't experienced turnover, which is really good, you know, with our program. We're a very large program, and we haven't experienced turnover in the past several years. So, but we do have a checklist for staff to go through, and the 30, 60, 90-day process is really, for us, it follows our introductory period or our probationary period. And so if your tribe has a 6-month introductory or probationary period, I would suggest you develop a checklist and or an onboarding process that relates to those, because you want to make sure, as Suzanne mentioned, that there's no surprises when you do their evaluation and when you do recommend your counselors for permanent status. But definitely make sure that they know the vision and goal of your overall program. I mean, I can train anybody in the Rehab Act process, in initial interviewing and so forth. But if they're not on board with what vocational rehabilitation, tribal vocational rehabilitation is about, then it's going to be a problem. And so knowing the vision and goals of your program, and you can get that through your grant, you can get that through, as Suzanne mentioned, have some of the counselors greet them in an email. What do they like about tribal voc rehab, or what is their best part of their job? Share that with new employees. Build on those strengths, because most of our individuals, we have the Navajo Nation, we have to hire Navajos first before we hire non-Navajos. So I haven't had that experience yet in training on a non-Navajo individual through a program, but you know, we build on our program's culture, our values, that relationship-based interpersonal skills that everybody should have when they work with consumers. So building on those strengths, building on your program's, your own program strengths as far as culture and values. You know, if folks speak Navajo, then obviously you build on that strength. You have them do PR types of public relations kinds of things in the community, on the radio, those types of things. So you're looking at the competencies of the counselor, of what's expected, looking at the history of tribal VR, looking at aspects of disability, looking at the culture, the resources, professional conduct, as was mentioned earlier, looking at interpersonal skills that they have, not only with their coworkers, but with consumers that come on board. And again, if they get anything from the Rehab Act, have them read the preamble, looking at the view of disability and how disability is a natural part of the human experience, and your own program's view of disability, that holistic view of disability. So I just wanted to point out some of those areas, but Lee, I would think it would be different in terms of onboarding someone who, providing that orientation to someone who's not from the community. So there's different aspects of that they would know about. They would need to know about the tribal culture. They would need to know about, in a way, the do's and don'ts of your community and your culture and your tribe. Some areas of the reservation they may not have access to, for example. Some places in New Mexico, I'm sure some of the pueblos closed their communities to outsiders. And so, so there's a lot there that definitely would be different in communities. So I just wanted to make those comments. Thanks, Suzanne, for calling.
I didn't mean to, it was like throwing you under the bus. I apologize, but really wanted to hear what you had to say. Thank you, Paula. Paula brings up great points, as always. And one of the things that I would like to share as a former director of a program where I was, I am not Native, and some of the things that I learned from the elders of the tribe that I wanted to pass along to any of the individuals that I hired that were non-Native. And one of the things that I found in any orientation was that some of the young people coming on board, tribal people, really didn't have a real true knowledge or understanding that that their tribe is a nation within a nation. And we talked about honoring respectful traditions and, you know, creation stories and things of this nature that were sacred and private. And so there is a lot, I think that's a really good question that needs to be considered. Lee's question needs to be considered when you are developing an onboarding and orientation process. And Christopher has shared. Christopher, did you want to open your mic and share some of your thoughts instead of me trying to read it? Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My point and what I was trying to type in is that for me, I've noticed if a new hire did not grow up here on Spokane Tribes Res, whether they're native or non-native, there's going to be some cultural learning that they're going to have to experience. Right. And so the story I gave there is we have a relatively new person who grew up on his tribe's res. It was a ways away, and his tribe is a treaty tribe, and he just sort of thought all tribes were treaty tribes. And the Spokane tribe is an executive order tribe. He didn't even know what that was. And he had no concept of how that impacts cultural development of a tribe. So you know, if someone's not a Spokane tribal member, even if they're native, there's going to be some things that are different from them. So I try to do my best at giving them a bit of a history and culture and tradition lesson about the Spokane tribe. And we actually have an event that we do once a year that includes a historian here who guides us through the process of what the Spokane tribe went through. So, anyways, that was my point. In contrast to what Lee was asking, if they're native or non-native, I think that folks who are native but not from here might still need the same things that someone like me, being a non-native, needed to hear.
Right. Yes, it makes a big difference. Thank you, Christopher. Amanda has provided us some information, and Charlene and Julie, and oh my goodness, it's just like, I'd like to come back to these if we have time. This is, and I think, I like Amanda's. Amanda, are you available to talk, or are you not? Sometimes people they can talk or they can't. What Amanda's saying is that our company provides cultural videos to all staff onboarding with regard to Alaska cultures, and they take classes and history classes. So I think that's really, that is a good way to do it. The videos are excellent, and the videos can be shared. It could be part of the preboarding and shared with someone. I don't know if have we lost our PowerPoint altogether?
Oh, did it? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Was I sharing something I wasn't supposed to?
No, everything's fine. So if we go back to the question that I asked in the beginning, why onboarding? And there it is again, why onboarding? And one of the things that you can hear over and over again with any onboarding material is that it decreases high turnover by increasing staff engagement. The more people buy into something, the more they're invested in something, they're not going to let it go so fast. You know, you think about, well, I've given a month, I've given 2 months, I've given 3 months, I've been given 6 months, whatever it is. And the more you keep engaging and educating, you're reducing the event of I'm bored here, I'm not appreciated here, I need to go find some place where they know what they're doing, they're organized. And so think about onboarding as maintaining and having a stable staff. Next slide, please. So we're looking at the orientation stage of onboarding, where now we're into the organization of the tribe, your job, the job responsibilities, and making sure that the individual now knows what payroll is about, and they've signed their benefits, and, you know, they know what benefits. There's no question marks. They're ready to move forward and be part of. You're welcoming them into your work culture, and they're now feeling a part of that. And they're given the products and tools that they need, and they know the values of your program. That my assumption would be sharing the values of your tribal nation. Next slide, please. So there are 4 focus areas, right, in the checklist. And we have a checklist on our website. And if we go down to the next slide, we can see the different, next slide.
Okay, just real quick. So the 4 focus areas about this checklist that was created is a tool for you that you can adjust, you can edit. We're also going to add a couple after, it's been out there for a couple years. And so it needs a little revision, and so that it will be, it's currently out on our website, but it will be updated again. But it's just topics that you should think about, and specifically VR topics. And those are the 4 focus areas. Go ahead.
Right. Well, what I wanted to do was, it talks about the focus areas, which is, you know, having the employee's name, the date of hire, job title, and supervisor's name. So you have all of these things listed on this orientation checklist for the new staff. And what we have is the list is pretty extensive, but it talks about, you know, did you talk about the office building department and the area tour? Did you make sure that all of the material has been submitted to human resources? You talked about that work schedule, everything that we've been talking about, and Winona talked about, and Paula talked about, and I've been talking about, is this, and everybody else who's been chiming in the chat box or have talked with us. It's all about this. It's about making sure that you're providing all of those things that create security. There's no guessing. The person knows what their schedule is, what the breaks, the times. And by having this checklist, you're looking at what are, you know, the driving requirements. Does the individual have a driver's license and insurance? You provide them the policy and procedure. And Winona talked earlier about, you know, and Christopher, the questions about what part of the grant, and Paula also mentioned what part of the grant is necessary for individuals to read or not read, so that they have some familiarity of why is vocational rehabilitation in our community and why is it tribal. So all of these human resources, policy and procedure, and when we heard Carol, she was talking about, you know, in the beginning when she started 25 years ago, you know, they didn't have any, you know, set rules and regulations, but over time, you build on those things. I found that policies evolved because something occurred and you didn't know what to do about it. So now we're pre-thinking, and there's quite a few out there that have been around for a while. So maybe you don't have to worry about that situation. The policies and procedures are there. But you should be thinking about all the other activities. And this is just the checklist. It's just all of the things that you really want to make sure that all the things are in place that you need in place. I think about what needs to be included. My notes.
Can I add something?
Well, for some reason my notes are, there we go.
So let me add. So what's nice about this checkoff list is that it's just one page. And I think that that's important when you're presenting information and doing the onboarding or orientation with your new employee that it's not daunting. It's not going to be like 5 pages or whatever of everything they need to know. You know, it's quick and easy, and it says, okay, within this time period, these are the things that you need to know that are more of like the orientation part of your job. That's how I see the top part of this, is more of the orientation, where it's the policies and procedures, the new hire packet, the benefits, and all that kind of stuff. The second part of this, I feel, is more of like the onboarding, because all of this is going to take time. These are the training topics that that new employee needs to know in order to do their job. You know, what is assistive technology? Maybe they need to take a visit to an assistive technology lab. What are case files? How do you handle your case management? What is confidentiality? What is on-the-job training? Talking about traditional healing services. So to me, this portion of it is part of onboarding, because it's going to take a long period of time for most of your, you may hire someone that's already knows VR or tribal VR, but most cases you're going to hire someone that has transferable skills into that position. And then what is the VR process? That VR process is going to take a long time. I mean, we're creating right now, AIVRTTAC, a huge VR process training module. So that is going to be part of it. Okay.
Yes, and I just want to share that new employees, you need to talk about that. We talked about that probationary period, and make sure that there isn't any anything that's going to usurp any of the activities that you want to have take place, and make sure, I can't emphasize enough the one-on-one meetings and making sure that you have those evaluations in a timely manner, and then make sure that the individual has the human resource policy and procedures, and make sure they have the VR policy and procedure. Next slide, thank you. So are we going to go over this?
No. No. I will send it to everyone on the list. So when you receive your email either today or tomorrow of this recording, as well as the training topics or the training material that we have, I will give you the tool. Okay.
Great, thank you. So how to keep employees pre-onboarding and onboarding and orientation. And a great manager / supervisor or director, and a great employee will demand a great manager. It's really that being confident in yourself and sharing information and creating an environment that people feel welcome and safe in is really important. And that's one of the attributes of a great manager. And a great employee will demand a great manager. It is a partnership. It is, you work with individuals, your colleagues, and you're with your colleagues sometimes more than you are with your family members. And so it's really important that you create a respectful environment where you can all win. You can go on to the next one. And thank you.
Okay. So in summary, so when I think about what we just talked about, it reminds me of, it's very old information. I mean, it's like from 1960s. Every time I think about this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is from 1960s, but it's still relevant today. And I remember in a lot of the things that I talked, you know, during my counseling classes. But have you guys ever heard of that Bruce Tuckman? And he talks about forming, storming, norming, and performing and model. And it's about, you know, it's a order for a team, in order for a team to grow, to face challenges, to tackle problems, to find solutions, to plan out their work, to plan out the next grant, and deliver results and those are the employment outcomes, you kind of go through that forming, storming, norming, performing model, not only for yourself personally, but within your group. And so thinking about that, you're forming a team. You want to hire good people and you want to train them appropriately. You want them to know what they need to do to serve your people, to serve this vulnerable, group of people that need help. They need to get a job, but they need training. They may need just assistive technology. They may just need guidance and counseling just to get a job. And then there might be storming where they're confused, they're dealing with a pandemic, they're dealing with, so many different things happening. Maybe there's no jobs, or maybe there's internal stuff going on. And then there's the norming of the project where things start settling down and we start, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to get this training, and then you get to performing. And so think about that when you're hiring your new staff, is that they're coming in and they're becoming a team member. They're becoming part of your family. And I think about my AIVRTTAC family. We're in different states. We don't see each other a lot of times. And now we're dealing with COVID, and we've all had to do adjustments, but we all come together to support each other. I feel like we each have our own skill set. We have our own, I don't think any of us know everything. I know I don't. I have a lot of areas that I still need to learn, but I feel like I can provide a little bit to our group. But so in summary, when you look at the differences of onboarding and orientation, onboarding is like a journey. It's a journey. It can be up to a year journey. It's a lot of stuff that person is going to learn, and you need to be patient with your new employee, but you also need to be patient with that buddy that you got them, and be patient with yourself. Orientation is just a scheduled event. It's a one-time thing. It's just a couple hours. And onboarding starts even before the first day. There's a lot to think about and a lot of information that you want to provide them before they even start. And then orientation just happens right away within that first week. It's all that new hire packet. And of course, it ends onboarding around 12 months, and then orientation within the first or second week. Onboarding includes a lot of different people. May include a lot of different people online, them going to get resources, them taking them out to go get training, giving them the resources outside of your office. Orientation is mainly just the program and the HR staff. And then onboarding functions as whereas you're giving that new hire their tools that they need to do that work. On that second part of that checklist we gave you guys, that's more of like the onboarding, all those training topics that they need to know in order to function as a competent VR counselor. And then orientation is just immediate. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to just, Paula, if you want to add any more to our discussion about orientation and onboarding. There was a lot of things that you talked previously about. I really like the way Navajo has done their onboarding orientation as far as the technical things that need to happen at this time period, but you also have a way of coaching and shadowing and making sure that they understand what the policies are and how to take that information and put it into real life practice and leading up to competency, because that's what we all want. We want competent employees. And once they're competent, they're going to thrive. They're going to go out there and they're going to advance. I see people now. There was that guy, I was on a webinar, it was an IHD conference, and I was so impressed. Wayne had Otter, I think his name is Otter, I don't know his last name. It was so amazing to see him just thrive. He was out there talking on this national conference, and I was like, wow, Otter, you are a presenter. And so those are the things, you guys are the ones that are going to be training people. Okay, go for it, Paula.
The only other comment I wanted to make is we utilized that disability handbook that was developed, I guess, years ago. I'm not sure when it was last updated. but it provides a nice overview of eligibility, VR background, and doesn't necessarily go into tribal VR, but I believe that that's, it's a real helpful book because it goes through, yeah. And that one, we utilize that one in our orientation. We try not, and then each counselor has one of those handbooks for their future reference. And then we just got this one in the mail that I think Chris alluded to mentioned in the chat box, but this is the TBR handbook from the TBR Institute. And so I just got this in the mail, but it talks about the steps in the VR process, professional organizations. It highlights their curricula for their program. And so we'll be utilizing that as well with our counselors, onboarding our counselors. There's a comment in the chat box from Joyce Sosi, and she's the either still acting program manager, Joyce. I'm not sure if you get the position, but her question says, do you have one for program managers, directors that would need some training in managerial positions and that will help understand what is entailed in a program, be a director in the AIVR occupation, tools to use. And AIVRTTAC does have a checklist for counselors and also directors, I believe, and they look at the what does a director need to know during their first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And I know that's going to differ from if you come on board and you need to submit your annual report in the next 30 days, you know, that might surface to priority. But I don't know, Winona or Suzanne, do you want to comment a little bit more in response to Joyce's question?
Joyce says, do you have one for program manager directors that would need some training in management positions and that will help understanding all that entails to the program manager / director in the AIVRS occupation? To my knowledge, we do not have anything specifically for managers or directors. But if you were to look at the onboarding checklist, you could easily convert some of those things. Some of those things are absolutely true for no matter what position anyone is holding. Something that you would want more maybe for a director or a manager might be the financial piece. You know, any of the financial pieces, and it would be more important for a director or manager to read the grant proposal and understand it, understand the budget and that sort of thing. Any information and understanding that any information about finances, but which includes the budget and the regulations, any of that would have to come from your RSA project officer. They are the ones that AIVRTTAC, we can direct you to some of the information, but the interpretation, if you need something explained, you really need to go to RSA for that explanation. They are the experts in that field. And so I would recommend that part of your onboarding would really be knowing who those people are in RSA that you can talk with, and you know, meeting and greeting those tribal leaders in your nation that that you must know and be able to collaborate with. Winona, you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to also point out that we did mention that on our website, we do have the AIVRS Program Directors Toolkit, which is the first 90 days.
That's true.
So I will put that in the email that I send out with the recording. But also, yes, the financial piece is important. That is also on Northwest Indian College, that financial management toolkit that could answer a lot of things. But I could talk to Rebecca about that and see if we can set up some sort, you know, modify that one. But I think it's a really important thing that, yeah, that tool is probably more of the supervisor to their new staff But you as a new director, Joyce, there's certain things that you need to understand, like what is G5? What is those things that you need to do when you're trying to set up your reporting? You know, if you have difficulty in answering those questions in the report. So there's a lot of the reporting, the financial stuff, the grant writing, the grant management, and then learning how to be a supervisor. There's a lot of things in there. I bet there's a lot more on that checklist.
Suzanne?
Yes, Lee. Hi, Lee.
Yes, one comment or recommendation I share is that I believe it's also helpful as part of your annual or new employee orientation and training to conduct a similar one or invite your tribal leadership to your program orientation and training as new council members are elected, new presidents, new tribal chairpersons are brought into the office. I recommend that because on my personal site visits to the AIVRS programs, and it's not because I'm there with a checklist, what the program is doing, but when they provide the time to give us a community tour of not of the reservation where the primary resources are located, where the primary employers are located, where the schools are located. But what I find really interesting and important is being introduced to the various program administrators, including the admin assistants, the secretaries, and also being introduced to the tribal leaders. And what makes me really proud of the AIVRS program is when a tribal leader has an intimate knowledge of the TVR program and is able to share with us some of the good positive outcomes that has occurred as a result of the TVR program. And more importantly, sharing their personal mission statement, any plans of improving the quality of life for tribal members with disability. So that's my recommendation to the AIVRS program.
A great recommendation, Lee. Thank you. I know we used to have an open house on a yearly basis and invite the state and our tribal leaders and that sort of thing. But there's also, and I know other tribes that other programs that do that as well. That that open house where a great opportunity for new leadership to really get to know the people in the program and to learn a little bit about TVR. And it's not something that is embraced easily. It's pretty complicated. So sharing is great. So we are coming down to the bottom here, the bottom of the hour and a half. This is the our evaluation website. Please, namaste, please fill out the survey for us. We need to know how we're doing. And we need to hear some ideas from you. What is it that's missing? What is it? What other information are you seeking? Is there, and I want to thank Julie for the question about, this onboarding for directors and managers and where we are able to share that information. So please, for us to learn and grow, I mean, this is a partnership. We learn and grow from sharing ideas with one another. So please do that. AIVRTTAC, these are our resources. Winona, you want to cover this?
Yeah, it's just something I like to remind people that on our website, we have the e-learning training modules. There's 5 of them. We have the program director's toolkit as well as practice guides and fact sheets. We have newsletters as well as our weekly digest. If you are not on our listserv, please let us know. You can email us at AIVRTTAC@nau.edu, and we can put you on our weekly digests. We have COVID-19 resources as well as all the program maps are on contact information. And we have a Facebook page. So if you haven't seen it, or if you're on Facebook, please like or follow us. I put out things on there almost on a daily basis. We have some, you want to go over the webinars?
Sure. October 21st, we have the overview of the VR process, and Jamie and Wayne will be presenting that one. And then November 4th, we'll do a talking circle that will cover both today's webinar and the 21st. And then November 18th, the development of policies and procedures. And December 2nd, consumer informed choice. And those will be Wayne and Jamie. And then they'll have a talking circle December 6th. And that will conclude the year. And we are working on our next series of webinars and talking circles. We have some in the on the waiting list to go, but we would, the survey is a time for you to tell us, okay, we need to step outside the box and do something different. We need to hear something different. Are we focusing, do we need to have webinars that are director supervisor focused, VR counselor focused? What is it that it's about you. These are your webinars. It's based on what you want, what you need. So please keep us informed.
I just want to chime in that since annual reports will be due probably the end of December, new directors may want to look at the toolkit, that particular section of the toolkit, if they have any questions. The other thing is on October 22nd, RSA is scheduling a conference call with all tribal VR directors. They're asking for topics, they're asking for questions. So directors that are on the line, please chime in and don't miss the call on October 22nd.
Great, thank you, Paula. Also, I know I remember the acting director at one of the last KNORs that I participated in was talking about the 100-year celebration, VR celebration. So be thinking about success stories. Okay, Winona.
These are all the places you can find us. You can email us at AIVRTTAC@NAU, find us on our website or Facebook page, and we also have a YouTube channel. That is it, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And if you have any questions about onboarding orientation, don't hesitate to contact us. AIVRTTAC staff is here for you. Okay. I wish I could send you guys some piñons. I've been just munching on piñons. Paula.
I know there's a good crop this year. Lots of piñons on the Navajo Nation.
Guys, take care. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your participation.